Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world when you're watching this video. Hello, Taking Up Space subscribers. I am coming to you from Woodland Hills, California. Woodland Hills, but Topanga vibes area. I am still in the LA area, in other words. I got connected to two friends of friends who live up near the Topanga Canyon, and I've been staying in their yard for the last like three nights. And I'll be here till the end of the week, and then Saturday, today's Thursday, on Saturday I will be going back into the city, back into Los Angeles proper, to read at Open Eye Crystals, which is a magical shop that I've never been to before, but there is a tarot-thon that's being hosted by the Golden Dome School there, and the tarot-thon is a fundraiser for ecological justice. All the proceeds are going to Indigenous-led organizations in Australia, the Amazon, and the U.S. through organizations. If you want to find out more about that, you can check out my Instagram or go to the Golden Dome School's Instagram page where they can talk more about that as well. So I'll be doing that on the 18th, and then from the next week I'm going to be in Glendale again, hanging out with the dog Sailor that that you've seen in a previous video and in the newsletter as well. So yeah, I've been staying in this beautiful property. B and Joe, the people whose house I'm staying at, they are also, like, they're artists and work with herbs, all kinds of things. So I have found like a kinship and enjoyment of hanging out with them, and they have some animal friends as well. And yes, it's been really nice being up in this really, really quiet and peaceful area that's like outside of LA, which is what I really needed. Last week I'd been in Santa Monica for the whole week, and it was nice being on the beach. Like, not gonna try to pretend like it was like whatever. It was like really, really nice to be on the beach, but it was also like a lot of activity. There are just like people everywhere, just constant stimulation. And I felt like I needed to get a little bit more peace, and so thankfully I got connected to these folks through some friends of mine. And so yeah, it is time for the weekly intuitive update. Oh, also, I just want to say I'm recording from the van right now because it's like really cloudy outside, and where I'm parked in their yard, like, I haven't been getting like good solar coverage for my solar panels on the roof, and my fridge is plugged in all the time, of course, and so that's draining power. And when I open up the van doors, it's like the power usage goes up. And so I am just trying to stay warm and comfortable inside the van and just hanging out here, and just, relax and try to set up something a little bit different so that I can like record more often from the van, and make it like cute. This is like okay. Like, this is fine, but I'm hoping in the future to have it like a little bit more like video ready. And so that's just me talking, just giving you a sense of where I am in time and space. But I don't know if y'all have really, really seen the inside of the van before, but yeah, it looks like just a regular, minus like the little door stuff up there, it just looks like a regular, like, tiny apartment or something like that, which is what I love about it. I love that it's like very indiscreet, very, very discreet rather, on the outside, and on the inside it's like this little magical world. So anyway, that's enough rambling on my part. Yeah, it's time for the weekly intuitive update. The card that I pulled for us for this week kind of surprised me a little bit. I wasn't expecting it, especially after all the weeks of very watery, very feminine kind of advice and messages about slowing down and being receptive. But this week we have got the Seven of Swords. whenever I see this card, I'm like, ooh, this is gonna be spicy, the medicine here. So yeah, the Seven of Swords. And like the first thing that I thought when I saw this card was, okay, why now? Like, why does this card come after this like week of, or excuse me, the last several weeks of messages of like rest and restoration? Why now? How does that relate to what we have been experiencing? Like, is the invitation of rest still prominent and important right now? And if so, how does that relate to a card that is about motion and change, and well, not just motion, but like a kind of locomotion of the mind, kind of like a steamroll in a way. It's not a very restful card itself, and I think it's important to look at it in the context of what we've been hearing too, because I do think it's related to rest, and I do think it's related to self-care, even if it has like even if the framework and the pathway to get to that is a little bit different than with cards like the Queen of Cups or the Empress or the Queen of Pentacles. The Seven of Swords is a card that is about keeping your eyes on your own paper and staying in your own lane. It's about focusing your energy on your own accomplishments, your own goals, and your own sense of development. When we become too wrapped up in what other people have and also in what we think we don't have of our own, we end up becoming poor caretakers of our own values and our own valuables. So what then is the connection between these calls for rest followed by this kind of caution against being too focused on the progress or talents of others? Or because as you can see in this card, this person is carrying in a unsafe manner their own swords while kind of looking behind at the swords of the whoever is like encamped here. So some people see this card and they think that this person is stealing from others. But I think in actuality, what's actually happening is that this person is carrying their own swords, and then they're walking by these two other ones, and they're kind of ending up getting distracted and losing their focus by looking at what it is that they don't have. So that's why this is a card that seems like it's about what's external, but it's actually like a message for the internal. And so the connection between these calls for rest, paired with this message that it's saying, like, you know, the grass is not always greener. I think this card is coming up right now because rest is actually a really, really, really challenging practice. And I think that's also part of the reason why the message of rest has continued to come through over and over and over again. Because I know, me personally, if I like take like some time to rest, I'll take like an hour or a day and I'll be like, well, that's enough. I did it. Like, I'm rested now. What? Okay, time for me to work. And I don't think that's really necessarily how rest works in that way. It's because in that kind of example, it's more of like, well, I've done my rest and I won't have to rest again for another, however many days or hours. And I think it's important that rest not only happen, but that it actually is restorative. You actually like allow and make room for the space for, like, when I think of rest, I think of like the changing, like a regeneration of cells is like the first thing that comes to mind when I think of like actual like restorative kind of pause. I don't know what the cycle is for the actual regeneration of cells, but it does make me think that, that is when that means that like the restoration of cells is like it's like a whole process that we have to be present for. And if if we are going to allow that kind of like change to happen internally, like, but one, I'll say that regeneration of cells to me is also like, it means we're not just like kind of resting on a superficial level, we're resting down to like our core, to like the very nature of us, and we're integrating that sense of regeneration, that sense of really letting the message sink through and sink in. And so when I say restoration of cells, that involves like a kind of peace and a kind of flow and ease that can only come when you're really committing to that sense of care. And so, and I think it's super, super hard for all of us to, in the way we're raised, to like actually allow that kind of space for rest, because it's hard. It brings up a massive amount of discomfort in a society where we're taught that our value is less than or equal to our labor, you know? So when we hear that it's necessary to rest, our minds might start going in these other kind of directions, like, so I'm getting this message to rest. Is like so-and-so resting too? Is that person resting? Is my friend resting? Is my competition resting? If I rest now, am I going to miss an opportunity? Am I going to miss like clients? Am I going to like miss out on money? Like all of that is going into like what you don't have, instead of focusing on what it is that you do have, instead of focusing on what your gifts are, what you already have more than enough of. I think rest is important as a practice of knowing your value as well. And that's also kind of related to this card. When you intentionally choose rest, that means that you are inherently worth the pause. You're inherently worth in your existence. Your existence is not solely dedicated on how much you can like crank out and turn out. Like, you are valuable because you exist, and that's it. So this is the Seven of Swords, is reminding us that we're focusing on what our gifts are and what we already have more than enough of. This is to keep our eyes on that, because when we don't know how valuable we are, we end up becoming poor caretakers of what we do have. And you can see that kind of illustrated through the way that this person is handling their swords. Instead of holding them by the hilt, they're holding them at the blade, which means that they're getting cut, probably. They're probably hurt. It's like an uncomfortable and unreasonable way to like carry. Like, why are you carrying 5 swords by yourself in the first place? You know, there's so many different things that like come up when you see this image. Like, this is not someone that recognizes what the worthiness of what they have already. And so in that way too, I would say that the Seven of Swords is also a great card about boundaries as well. I see this as like, it shows us where we are having like leaks, like energy leaks. So when I see this card, I see this as an opportunity to also like focus on energy leaks, where my mental attention is going. I start thinking about how I can keep my power focused and not on things that are not mine or out of my control. And that is a really important quality to rest. Quality rest also means reducing the instances in which we get wrapped up in other people's drama, which is most easily accessible through like social media, because we can just scroll through like, you know, a large number of dramatic like events or conversations like in the span of like, you know, just a minute, you know. And so it's like when you like are spending your energy looking outward into other people's. This is something I found myself doing. I started laughing because when I was making the notes for this card, I wrote a sentence the sentence I just said. I said, quality rest also means reducing the instances in which you are getting wrapped up in other people's drama that we can scroll through in an instant thanks to social media. And in the middle of writing that sentence, like, this is how ingrained that kind of scattered behavior, like kind of seeking like emotional an emotional hit kind of energy can come from. In the middle of writing that sentence, I picked up my phone and started looking at Instagram. Like, I was literally in the middle of it, and then I picked up my phone and I was like, I pulled up Instagram, and then I was like, I am literally doing what I'm talking about in this sentence right now. And then I set it down, finished writing the sentence, and then wrote my next one. You know, like, and I think this is important to remember too, like, social media is a lot, yeah, but it also is what it is. Like, we know what social media does at this point, and it's okay to use it. Obviously, it's a useful tool. It's a useful way to connect with people, but just be mindful of where your mind goes, where your mind and your energy goes when you move through it, because it's such a huge amount of stimulation. Like I said, like, you can tap into the energy of so many different people in just like a minute, because let's just say you're looking at Facebook and someone posts like a status, and then it creates like a large discussion in like the comments or something like that. You can just like, that's like tapping into like 20, say, different people's energy all at once, and that's a lot. That's like a lot to do, and that's a lot to do in like such an easy, like, instantaneous kind of form. The practice of boundaries is really important just for seemingly passive activities like scrolling, because it's actually not a passive activity. It's an activity that's meant to get you worked up emotionally, get you in like a high, like, kind of feeling state, or a high thinking state, which of course is swords of air, and that is the stuff that keeps you outside of your own center. That's the stuff that keeps you out there. That's the stuff that keeps you like triggered too. Like, I'm thinking about, it's such a huge amount of emotional energy. It can affect your whole day, and like a triggering social media post can like fuck up a whole week. Like, it's happened to me before, where I've gotten like a reminder about something, and I've just been like, oh my gosh, like, this is it would change like my outlook, and like I'd have to work on then healing that aspect of myself that was so like kind of triggered and affected by whatever message I saw. Thinking about how this year is also an Emperor year, I would say that the card the Emperor implies a certain level of like inherent like mastery, or self-possession. And I think that in a year like this, where the invitation is so strong and like rich in terms of it being about our power, I think it's really important to like be able to pay attention to like the little things, the little details, and making sure that your energy is really grounded and really rooted within yourself. It really, the little things do really matter. I've found that just taking incremental steps to be more mindful about where my emotional energy is going has made a huge difference and made a vast improvement on my sense of like peace and my ability to focus and do work and feel accomplished, and then also be able to rest without feeling guilty. And so just pay attention to where you start to feel flooded with emotion or flooded with thought, to the point where you just kind of like are distracted and like kind of lose yourself. And pay attention to when that starts to happen to you, and what scenarios do you suddenly become inundated with like emotional information or mind-based information, and Ask yourself what is making your brain direct your attention in that way. Are you uncomfortable about something? Is there something that you're trying to avoid? I notice that I start to get distracted and focusing on social media and stuff a lot when I'm about to push through to like something challenging, or when I'm about to like really act like embody within my power. Then like my brain will be like, oh, let's pay attention to something else for a second. Like what's over here? So yeah, that's kind of like some important stuff about this card as well. So the Seven of Swords is an interesting card because related to all that, it also shows us where we don't have faith, and it shows us where we end up betraying ourselves too. So that's why it's really important to stay within your own energy, because it's really easy to end up, especially if you're a sensitive person, if you're an intuitive person, it's really easy to be influenced by external messages in subtle ways. And this is the year when all that subtle messaging, all of that it's time for it to be addressed. It's time for us to set up good boundaries around them, and not to let that stuff carry within us, because that is actually the stuff that keeps us feeling afraid, and it makes the fear second nature. And so we're moving out of that energy in this year. So yeah, the last thing I have to say about this card is that I want to talk about like the brain and like the human brain, like really briefly. I think, and I have to be mindful of this when I talk about soul work as well, it can be easy to kind of set up like a sort of dichotomy where it's like soul good, brain enemy, and that's not the way it works. The soul works with your brain. Your brain is, your greatest ally. It keeps you alive. Like, it keeps us present. It gives us personalities. It gives us likes. It gives us everything that we know of in our human self. And our human selves and our bodies are very, very important. The human mind is doing just what it needs to do for us right now. And we can assist it and help it along in many ways, to get it to where it's working and consciously in tandem with our soul in a way that feels generative and expansive. And so the human mind is an imperfect mind, and it is perfectly imperfect. It's exactly what we need, exactly what it's meant to be, flaws and all. And so this card is a reminder that I don't have to be anything to anyone on this earth, on this planet, or not of this planet, or in the invisible, in the fifth dimension, whatever. The only person that needs convincing of anything is myself, is my brain maybe sometimes. But once I've integrated that trust into my practice, then the channel becomes clear. Your intuition and your channel and your intuition become clear, and that is when you find peace. And when we realize that everything that we're searching for is already with us and already within us, then it no longer becomes about proving things to other people. It becomes just about living up to the standard that we know that we are worthy of. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this. I hope you have a great week. And yeah, take care.